So if you went to that, then that way I can reach out to you whenever I have it done. So that way you can check it out then.
I don't want to say work in progress, but we're always building new features and
Hello, everyone.
crushing bugs
Hello.
and stuff like that. So
If you
just
notice that everybody
with
suddenly
lots of stuff
goes
coming down
mute,
the road,
that's just us
I'm
getting
sorry,
ready
I
to
can't hear you
begin.
right now over Tyler.
continually
All
changing
right,
that.
Okay, so we're getting ready to
Yep,
begin.
sorry.
we're getting ready to start. Thank you so much, everyone who popped into the space early. We've got a great crowd here. Um, we've got the live stream going. We've got a bunch of people joining us on YouTube. We're really excited to kick off this afternoon, kick off our third annual Emerging Realities. It's great to see you all here in the space. We're going to do a bit of housekeeping and a bit of orientation. For those of you who have been in AltSpace before, can you give me some emojis? All right. So we got some AltSpacers. Great, great. Can everybody hear me? Just a clap or smiley face if you can hear me. All right. If you're new to AltSpace and you can't see what I'm talking about with the emojis, if you look down to your left, there's a little menu and a little smiley face. If you click on that, you've got a whole bunch of emojis going there, and you can respond that way. Great, yeah, awesome. And we'll try our best if there's people who are putting their hands up to ask questions, that sort of stuff. As the evening progresses, we'll make sure that we get to questions and that we make sure that we're addressing you all. So how many people in the room right now are from Canada? Show of hands. Cool. How many people from the US? All right. Anybody from Europe? Okay, I see a couple of people waving, a couple of hands up. Great, great. So it's probably pretty late for you. So thanks so much for joining us in whatever time zone you're coming in from. Now, the most important question of the evening, or the afternoon, I guess it's late afternoon, evening for some, a little bit earlier for others. How many people right now are joining us in their pajamas? Any pajama wearers? All right, I'm glad you could admit it. Great. Yes, I see some of my students. Yes, they're wearing their pajamas. Awesome, right? That's the best thing about virtual reality. We can join in our PJs, right? So it's great to have everybody here gathering from all over the world. The first thing I'd like to do is to acknowledge that even though we are in a virtual space, the territory that Lethbridge College stands upon is traditional Blackfoot territory. So we'd like to recognize that we are on traditional Blackfoot territory, and in doing so, we want to honor traditional ways of knowing, and that's something that's very important to us at Lethbridge College, and we hope that you will see as you talk to our students tonight. So my name is Tyler Heaton. I'm one of the instructors in the Lethbridge College Virtual and Augmented Reality program. To my left is Mike McCready, who is also an instructor, and to my right is Allison Secor, an instructor in our program. We have a few other college people in the audience tonight. Anybody from Lethbridge College, throw your hand up. That can include the students, yeah. If you see anybody wearing a blue hoodie with green pants or blue hoodie with the logo on it, those are our students. So seek them out throughout the evening. Right now, they're sort of spread out around the space at their posters to share some information before we got started. But those are our students in the program, and so they're here tonight to talk to you about what they're doing and to share what they've been working on since September in our program. To kick things off tonight, though, we're honored to have with us a great keynote speaker, and that's actually, you know what? I'm a bit frazzled here. Let me get going here. I forgot to do something, Mike. Mike's looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I wanted to actually start out by talking a little bit about how Emerging Reality started and where it's going. So in 2018, Mike McCready and Chris Hodgson Bright, who I'm not sure where he is in the audience, but he is here somewhere with us, were involved in the first ever Emerging Realities, which was an event that was put on by one of our other programs, Multimedia Production and Digital Communications and Media. I believe that's the two programs that are involved. Mike, you'll give me a thumbs up if I'm wrong. All right, we're good. So it was an event that was put on, and it was the first conference that was put on 100% in virtual reality. Now, of course, over the last few months, we've been hearing about lots of conferences that have been put on in virtual reality. And really, as headsets have become more available and as more people have jumped into virtual reality, we're seeing a lot of this happening. But at the time in 2018, this was something fairly new. And it gathered a lot of attention. And you can see from the stats that we had participants from 5 continents, 16 countries, 16 states, and over 84 different cities join us in that first Merging Realities. Last year, we held it again, where we had a sister school in Ontario that was a part of Merging Realities, but we were also in virtual reality, and we were online, and we were in a lot of different places on the net and across the world. And we wanted to carry that on as we keep moving forward as a school, as ambassadors for virtual reality and augmented reality and extended reality in all different forms. Merging Realities has been a really important event for us to share our passion for immersive media and technology. The other thing that I wanted to quickly mention is that our program and our students are part of this connection with the virtual reality industry. And so one of the things that we did with the first Merging Realities is we really connected with a lot of different people across the virtual reality industry. And for those of you that this isn't your first time in AltSpace and who've maybe spent a little bit of time in immersive media, you know how supportive the industry has been. And so I'd like to recognize, as part of this, our friends from AltSpace who have done an amazing job getting us ready for this event and supporting us by helping us create this venue. And yes, big show of love for them. They have been great. So in particular, Jason Schmidt and Drew, I'm not sure if he's here, but they have been fantastic in helping us get this event going and get the space ready and just answering a ton of questions, helping with our speakers and with our students, getting them ready to be in this space. So we're very thankful for them and for their support. And the industry has been really supportive with our program. After the first Merging Realities, at the college, there started a conversation about, maybe we could do more of this. And the Merging Realities 2018 actually was prior to there being a formal program in virtual and augmented reality. But after that, there was a lot of conversations, a lot of discussion on, maybe this is something that has some legs. Maybe this is something that's going somewhere. And how right we were, because shortly thereafter, they began program planning for the virtual and augmented reality certificate program that our students are now a part of. And we've had tremendous industry support, and that industry support has turned into an industry connection. We've had a lot of people from across North America, from around the world, who have given us feedback, who have been involved in course planning and program planning, and who have been there for us to answer or ask questions and really shape the program in a way that we know that our students, when they're finished, will be going out into the industry in a meaningful way, and that they'll be prepared for the kind of work that is coming, right? And I think that we're all being surprised daily by the types of things that are happening in the immersive media space. But it wouldn't be possible without the support that we've had from the industry. So I wanted to make sure that I recognize that. And I want to embarrass my students just a little bit, because right now you see them all in their wonderful blue hoodied avatars, but in real life, this is our student body. This is our group right here. So this is from an event earlier in the program. So this was last semester, and they were meeting with a group from Red Iron Labs, I believe. They were meeting with Red Iron Labs, which is a local developer to us, to talk about some things in virtual reality. And so this meeting in VR space, in AltSpace, is nothing new for our students. It's kind of old hat now. They're used to it. But this is what they look like in real life. So if you see yourself on the screen, throw your hand up. Of our students, yeah. So see a bunch of our students around the room. So this is what they actually look like. And you'll see that they're pretty close, right? Like I can recognize each one of them, and the avatars do a good job of connecting with them. So that's where I wanted to get started. I just wanted to welcome everyone, and I want to do a little bit of housekeeping as well in terms of how the evening's going to go, so that we all know what's happening, right? So we're going to start out with our keynote, and then after that, we're going to go on to presentations from our students. Now, with those presentations, they'll kind of appear, they'll be sharing some information with you. We're not going to have a Q&A with the student presentations. Instead, what we have in the space is these posters that you can see all around you that our students have been standing next to. Oh, just a second. Thank you. Whoever threw me on air, thank you. That's another thing I have to mention. But so around the space, you'll see these presentations from our students. And so that'll be your opportunity to interact with the students, to ask questions, to give them feedback about their presentations. But we will have a Q&A with our keynote. So we'll make sure that we facilitate asking questions with our keynote. Now, as this event has grown this evening, we're actually spreading out over multiple AltSpace rooms. So for those of you who may not be in the main room, who are in another room, hello and welcome. Even if I can't see you, I hope that you can see and hear me, and that you'll be able to see and hear our wonderful keynote and our student presentations. We're going to try our best to have moderators moving through those rooms to make sure that if there's any questions that we're forwarding them back here, and we'll make sure that our speakers, when they present, will repeat the questions, and if there's any questions, we'll make sure that we repeat them so that we hear them across all of the rooms that we're spread out over. A quick reminder for our students, because I know that they might be a little bit nervous, is that we want to make sure that we go on air when we're presenting. We go on air, we turn our microphones on to amplify. Now that's just for the students. For the rest of you who aren't presenters, unfortunately, you don't get the amplify my voice feature. But with our students and our presenters, they do, and that's great because it allows you to hear them even at the back of the room like you're hearing me right now. And then we also want to make sure that we turn that off when we're done, and I'll make sure that I turn mine off. If at any point you see me kind of do like the mannequin thing and just kind of go dead for a second, that's just because I've jumped out of the headset to handle some of the other technology that's running on the back end. You might see some other people in the space just temporarily do that, and that's just us jumping away from the keyboard. So common AltSpace thing, right? To see the floating hands. You see my hand right now is upside down because I'm holding a phone in my other hand to do my slides. Right, typical AltSpace stuff, right? So moving on, let's get this show going because you didn't come here to hear me talk. I want to introduce you to our keynote speaker tonight, who is Amy Lou Abernethy, the president, the creative director, and the chief learning strategist for AMP Creative. She is an inspiring and exciting speaker. The work that AMP Creative is doing with immersive media and things like empathy building and recognizing bias in the workplace. I've had the pleasure of seeing some of their material at the VR/ARA Summit in Vancouver, and it's just amazing stuff. It really brings you into an experience in a different sort of way, and we're really excited to have her here with us tonight. I keep saying tonight because it's night outside in the virtual world, but this afternoon for those of you who are west of Center. And yeah, please, Amy Lou, will you join us on the stage?
Boom, just like that. Hi, thank you. It's good to see you all. And I can amplify myself, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Hi, everybody, and I understand we also have some other folks in other rooms, so that's exciting. I want to thank you, Tyler. I'm really thrilled to be here tonight to celebrate this graduating class, to celebrate sort of this moment that we're having here in XR. And it's lovely to be with a group of folks. I think we all have been isolated for a while, so it's great to be here to gather with you all. I really appreciate this group. I really appreciate this platform. I'm excited to share some thoughts with you. And I'm going to start with a question. So feel free to raise your hand if you have a yes in answer to this. Has anyone here ever had a dream in which someone spoke so loudly in the dream that it woke you up? That ever happened to anybody here? A couple people say yes. All right. Maybe it's rare. It happens to me, sometimes rarely, but it happens. And it happened the other morning. And the voice and the message were so loud that I sat straight up in bed and I could swear that I still heard the vibrations of the words echoing in the room. It made quite an impression on me. Now, this is a true story, and these are the words that I heard so loudly that they woke me up. And I'm wondering if we can advance the slide. Keep going. Keep going. These are the words: be led in unexpected directions. These were the words, this was the phrase that woke me up, and it was like a command. It was an imperative. It was an order. And the voice that said it, because it was just a voice in the dream, and the words were, I saw them written in bold, kind of like this. The voice that said it was Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton told me this in my dream. Now, I'm aware I'm speaking to a group in celebration of Lethbridge's first year graduating class from your AR/VR program. I've talked to some of you. I know that this is a group of dedicated and talented folks who are mostly in your 20s with some exceptions. This is a Canadian millennial techie group, not the most likely demographic to be super familiar with Dolly Parton, let's be clear. But I would like to introduce you to Ms. Parton briefly, and I'd like to explain why she is an apt oracle for these times, for this industry, and even for this event. I'd like to unpack the wisdom that was delivered in her voice, and I want us to talk about what it means to be led in unexpected directions. So, for anyone out there interested in what it means when Dolly Parton speaks to you in a dream, one approach is to ask yourself who Dolly Parton or any other dream visitor is to you. What part of your own psyche is this person representing? Do we have a picture of Ms. Parton up there? If we could advance the slide. This is who spoke to me in my dream. Now, the people in our dreams, they're sort of like sock puppets for aspects of ourselves. I realized that Dolly did not use astral projection to visit me in my sleep, although that would be super cool if she did. She was an archetype for some part of me. And the message, be led in unexpected directions, well, that was a message to myself, from myself. So who is Dolly Parton to me? Well, let's go over the facts. She's an American singer, songwriter, and actress, among other talents that she has. She earned early fame as a country and Western star in the 70s and 80s, but she has crossed genres, and she continues to write and record songs, as well as a multitude of other creative projects, from humanitarian to artistic. I mean, Dolly, she's relevant. Just look at this next slide. I think you'll recognize this meme, right? Who's seen this meme? Dolly made that up, okay? January of this year, she started that. So she is a creator, she's a trendsetter. She's someone who, at the age of 74, constantly reinvents herself. All right, next slide, please. So here's what she said, and you're like, okay, Amy Lou, cool. Obviously, Dolly, she's an innovator, she's a creator. She's someone who has redefined and reinvented herself over and over. But what does that have to do with XR? What does that have to do with spatial computing, with your graduating class of AR, VR creators who are launching your professional lives at this extraordinary moment in our history? Well, I think the reason that my mind chose Dolly as a puppet for its message several nights ago is because she embodies to me the qualities and characteristics that this graduating class, that we might need these characteristics in the coming months and years. I think Dolly's the archetype that we need right now. And when I spoke to some of the upcoming graduates of the program, you all exhibited the same qualities. So Dolly and XR creators alike, we understand what it means to be led in unexpected directions. It means, next slide, please. It means to be adaptive, to be curious, and to be responsible. Now, I'm going to leave Ms. Parton behind as we talk about these themes, and I'm going to start with the adaptive. Oh, let's go back. Go back one more. We're back at the adaptive. Something might be wrong. Okay, so just to recap, so far I've discussed dream interpretation. I've discussed American singer-songwriter icons, but I haven't addressed the elephant in the room, in this virtual room. We're in the midst of a health crisis that none of us in our lifetime has seen. And I'm not here to prognosticate about the implications of coronavirus on our communities and on our economies, but I can't help but have a strong point of view as to what it means for virtual reality. Our presence in this virtual room today, it's adaptive. This very event was going to be held in the flesh, in real life, at Lethbridge's campus. And then the world changed. A virus ran rampant, and a border was closed. And Lethbridge didn't cancel this event. Without skipping a beat, they moved the event here to AltSpace. I mean, this is a group of AR/VR educators, and you've hosted events here in AltSpace before, and we're all safe to gather together here. This is amazing. This, my friends, is adaptive. You know, we hear a lot about resiliency these days. Even before the pandemic, resiliency, it was a bit of a buzzword. But the students in this program, they aren't just resilient. There's something even more important. They are adaptive. Because resilience means a kind of flexibility that allows you to snap back after stressors and assume your previous shape. But folks, in real life, the last thing we want to do is snap back, especially when we consider innovation. There's no going backwards there. We need to snap forward, and adaptive is the better word to describe that. And I see that quality in the students in this program. Well, for example, I spoke to Kenny. We talked about what it means to be adaptive when working collaboratively. I don't know, Kenny Lestica, are you here in the room? Kenny, somewhere? Raise your hand. He's got some work around here. I'm sure we'll be hearing from him later. Hey, Kenny, good to see you. So Kenny told me that he always thought of himself as having a certain kind of a design aesthetic. He's really drawn to sleek, futuristic environments. But with a recent group project, he was very open to other ideas from the group, and he ended up working in a very different direction, different type of environment than he ever would have chosen to create on his own. But he didn't turn away from that challenge. He embraced it. He learned even more from that experience. He grew and changed for it. And now that it's done, he hasn't snapped back to what his stylistic preferences were before. He's been changed by it. And that is what being adaptive means. The challenges of this program, they've put pressures on the graduates. And that pressure has resulted in strength that I heard from each and every one of them. I spoke with David, who entered this program with very little background in coding. David, are you here? Say hi, David, somewhere in the room. I'm looking forward to talking to you. I talked to him a little bit earlier, but he entered the program with very little background in coding. And he put hours outside of the classroom and learning everything he could to be able to tackle the assignments. And he did. He was adaptive. He's graduating soon. You're going to see some of his work. An environment for an occultist. It's over there in the corner, and it's really good. He'll be showcasing that later. And these students aren't only adaptive, they're also curious. And I think that's my next slide. So what does it mean as an XR professional to be curious? Well, I think that curiosity is the essence of a creative life. And as XR professionals, you're living a creative and innovative life. But how do you continue to innovate? How do you continue to create, like Dolly Parton, well into your 70s? I think you follow your curiosity. You allow yourself to be led in unexpected directions. You say, what if? And you follow that musing down strange paths to inspiration. In preparing for this speech and speaking to some of the graduating class, I asked them what they might want to know from me. What are they interested in learning from somebody with my background? And wouldn't you know it, a lot of them want to know what somebody like me looks like when they're hiring someone. They asked about what questions I might ask in an interview, for example. And what I told them is that I'm always interested to know where someone's curiosity has led them, what somebody's passionate about, what projects they're working on the side. Like one of the students I spoke with, Sean Dow. Are you here, Sean? I want to say hi. Hi, Sean. Good to see you. So Sean is one of those non-traditional students in the class. He is what he calls a skill collector. He is an entrepreneur. He's a licensed electrician. He's a motorcycle mechanic. And now he's an XR creator. And his curiosity led him to this program. I can't wait to see what he brings to our industry because of all the other skills that inform his approach. Sean's curiosity led him here because he wanted to learn how to create VR experiences like the ones that he enjoyed. And like the other students in this program, like all creators, he's following his curiosity and it's leading him in unexpected directions. I have been led in unexpected directions with my company's VR creations. Amp Creative has made several immersive experiences where the user embodies an underrepresented minority who's experiencing exclusion. You see what they see. You hear what they hear. These experiences are based on interviews and lived experiences. They're based on real life. Our approach in creating them, it was intuitive to some extent. We thought, how better to use the medium of immersive technology and engender empathy than to immerse users in someone else's perspective. But the results completely exceeded our expectations. The feedback from the thousands of people who have gone through these experiences, it's been extraordinary. These perspective-taking experiences have been catalysts to deep conversations, to design sessions where business leaders design new systems to reduce bias. Just impactful action has resulted from these short VR experiences. And so I was curious. I was like, but why? What about these immersive experiences causes such deep impact and such lasting action? So I started reading the research literature. I started understanding why experiences we create, why perspective taking in VR specifically has such a lasting and enduring effect. My curiosity is leading me not only to understand how to create impactful perspective taking in VR, but also what does that mean for people when they remove their headsets? How do we extend that experience into an enduring skill that results in the ability to interpret and interrupt one's own biases, to improve interpersonal skills and relationships? I get very passionate about it because my curiosity about this has really led me in unexpected directions. And that can lead to innovation and bringing new value to people's lives, which is what I think we're kind of all about. And then the last thing I want to talk about is be responsible. Responsibility, the act of being responsible. It's a big idea. It is multifaceted. And what does it mean to be a responsible XR creator? For every one of us currently here in attendance, our access to this technology indicates, in my opinion, a deep responsibility. There are only a few of us who have access to this very unevenly distributed future. We're gathering at a virus-free event. How many people in our communities can do that right now? I know that responsibility has been stressed by Lethbridge in your program. The students I spoke with told me how passionate their teachers are about the responsibility of XR creators. Most students told me that they were drawn to XR as a means to escape reality, to build worlds and tell stories to entertain. But through their development as creators in this program, they've been exposed to ways they can serve other needs, from mental health to physical fitness to teaching new skills. Each student has told me how they've expanded their passions and want to lend their skills to serve our communities. And I don't mean to say that entertainment and escapism doesn't serve us in a lot of ways, especially these days, but I was really heartened by how these students are going to enrich our communities and our professions with a sense of responsibility to use their skills and access to technology to address a broad range of needs. Those of us with access to this rich and innovative medium need to align ourselves with communities who don't have this access. How can we amplify their voices and give them access to tell their stories? What opportunities do we have to work with creators and give them the access that we have? I've seen firsthand the enduring impact that stories told in virtual reality have on people, the presence and sense of embodiment that VR and AR can bring. It's transformative. So what stories will we choose to tell? And what will we choose to expose people to? We have a powerful responsibility as creators, and I know that this class will not take that responsibility lightly. So back to Dolly's command, my last slide, be led, to be led. Language is really powerful, and I know that to be led suggests passivity. I know that to be adaptive and curious is a bit more reactive than proactive. And the word unexpected kind of suggests a lack of planning, perhaps, an element of surprise when one looks up and sees where someone has landed. And I don't necessarily think that the role of XR creators is a passive role or that creativity must be unplanned. In fact, I think that inspiration can be the result of hard work, of dogged research, of trial and error. But there is an element of the unexpected that's essential. It's essential that we hold our visions lightly, that we're responsive to a changing world and the changing technology around us. I mean, the reality is none of us, I don't think any of us would have planned to have woken up to the world that it is today in the midst of a pandemic, gathering in VR not solely because of the nature of our work, but in reaction to travel restrictions and community health measures. And yet, because of the nature of who we are and the medium we create in, we have what it takes to face these times. We can be responsive to the needs of our communities and our industries and ourselves. We can be led in unexpected directions in order to lead in unexpected directions. It's going to take faith in ourselves. It's going to take being really adaptive, folks. It's going to take following our curiosity and being very responsible. And maybe it'll also take a few more words of encouragement from unexpected places. My very last slide, a nice quote from Dolly. So thank you all. I've got some Q&A time, and yeah, and I appreciate your attention, so thanks. And I don't know if I unmute people for Q&A or how you want to run this, Tyler. You tell me. Thanks.
All right, so I've unmuted the microphones now. So some of you may find that you are still that you're still muted. And so what we'd like to do is have you just use the hang on. Have you just use the hands up emoji?
Okay,
so you'll see it.
We do have a few people. This is Mike McCready here. We do have a few
That's
people
right.
who are in. Hey, and awesome presentation. Thank you again so much for taking some time to share with us. We do have a few people in split between two rooms, so we might try to have some of the moderators, and maybe Allison, if you could manage kind of the question and answer in the main room. I'm in the second room, and I can manage the questions in the second room. There is someone in the second room that has a question, so we'll start with them, and then maybe we'll go back and forth and see how people have questions between the two rooms. Blanche here. So let's give me 1 sec to give Blanche access to be streamed to both rooms here. Give me 1 sec.
You were all a super nice audience. Thanks for all the emojis that you sent my way. Thank you. Lovely folks.
All right. Blanche, go ahead and ask your question to Amy Lou now.
Is Blanche maybe not unmuted?
Let me just double check here. Hold on 1 sec. Just, go ahead, Blanche. Can you try now?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Hi, Blanche.
Yes. Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, I'm a professional in the show business, and this is a really new platform for me. I'm older than anyone here. I do theater play for 30 years, but I really love this new platform. So I don't know can be the way to do something professional here. So how can I put the people together to make some kind of show, have a rehearsals in this platform and then present for these people? Because we have a lot
I
of
love it.
privilege with this. So I don't know who's the
I-
one can put it together.
Absolutely. Well, I think that can I just say, from my point of view, that I've worked with a lot of theater professionals. I think that theater professionals actually have so much to bring to the XR community because you really understand these and blocking. And I think a lot of times immersive experiences are more like a play in 360
Yeah.
than like anything that cinematography teaches. We just don't have that vocabulary. So I
Yeah.
think that the theater professionals and directors come with a lot of great skills. I love that idea, but are you saying that you don't have the headsets and access to get people here, or that you want to be connected with somebody at AltSpace? Like, what
Yeah,
was
I
your...
don't know if you guys, first, thank you for your presentation. It's really professional and I love it.
Oh, thanks.
Second is like, I don't know who's the people can help me to build like a theater and, have a meetings I'm a writer as well. So I'm trying to write something important in this moment for what happened out of here.
Yeah.
But how is the way to put together the talent here and present something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would think I wouldn't try to build my own space. I would take advantage of fantastic venues like AltSpace and some others where you can all gather and make your own event, make it a private event and rehearse and post about the event and invite people to it. That's the approach I would take. I think that would be awesome. I'd come to that.
Okay, so how is this first step? Because I'm really new in this. This technology blows my brains because I'm old. I'm not an old woman, but I'm old people like this.
I'm sure that AltSpace has some tutorials, but perhaps we could follow up with you with a website or something that helped you understand how to sort of master this. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah, to build some together because everything is not by one person. And by all my experience, I can tell everyone here like we have to be together to do whatever we need. So it's not the thing I'm gonna build my theater and I'm gonna be my my own show, so come and see me. No, I think this is the great platform to be together again without risk and make a homework for everyone when you put the visors up.
Awesome, great question, Blanche. And I just sent you a friend request, so feel free to connect with me in AltSpace after the show. We could chat some more. Allison,
thank you, Mike.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there someone in the main room, Allison, that has a question for Amy Lou?
Yeah, first of all, can you give me some emojis if you can all hear me? Perfect. Okay, I think I saw a question up front here when we first asked. Can you just put your hand up again so I can see you? No? Okay, then I'll open the...
here.
Oh, here it is, yeah.
Here we go.
Let me just put you on... It appears I cannot put you on air.
Hello?
I heard a hello.
I hear a hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, there we go.
Well, I work with Manina. She's somewhere back there. She works into a lot of corporate event planning, like large gatherings. We're talking about 800 to 1,000 people. We're really looking to expand into this VR world and the technology. We're just curious about to knowing how the servers can sustain, let's say, 800 to 1,000 people simultaneously streaming into a presentation or to a panel. How would you suggest we go about that?
That is beyond my scope of understanding. I would ask some smart folks, but I personally don't have expertise to help you navigate that.
Okay. I was just
Maybe
curious.
somebody here does.
Yeah, Jason on stage right here. He would be the guy to talk to. Yeah.
Capacity is always kind of a challenge going forward, but one of the ways that AltSpace, and again, we could connect after the event, but one of the ways that AltSpace deals with that capacity issue is so for example, the room that we're in, the first room, had a capacity of 70, but when that capacity is reached, a room that is an exact clone of this room is duplicated, and the overflow is put into that room. Presenters, and you heard Allison talk about giving you on-air access.
Andy, where the hell are
when
you?
they have the on-air access, are mirrored in each of the rooms here. So it's in a way allowing you to have
Where are you?
multiple people join the room, but it's really it's separate rooms, so there's that capacity issues addressed. So we could definitely talk offline. I'll send you a friend request, and we can talk after the event if you'd like.
Definitely, I appreciate it. Yeah, because like I said, a lot of people are just, like I said, immersed, like understanding the crisis. So we're moving on to this VR situation where we can gather, communicate, exchange ideas, and try to develop projects. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Perfect. Okay, Mike, do you have any questions in the other rooms?
Anyone in the room that you can see, in the second room right now, let me just turn on air off for a sec. Oops, never mind. If you're in the second room, can you put your hand up if you'd like to feel an emoji if you have a question?
I see a hand there.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Christian Ray, let me just give me 1 sec here. Just have to give you access. There we go. Go ahead, Christian.
Can't seem to hear him in this room.
Nope. Okay.
Amy, you're just too popular. We have far too many rooms to manage. It's good though. Thank you for mentioning too the ability for us to meet in these times. You know, the fact that this is the most social interaction I know I've had in a few days. So being able to bring this many people together, even with the technical issues, is very much worth it.
Really special. Well, I'm going to circulate down here. I know that we've got the student presentations coming up, and anybody who wants to chat with me is welcome to. If Q&A.
Yeah, why don't we take a few minutes? I'm just gonna make sure I'm on here. Why don't we take a few minutes? We can circulate and chat for a second. So in about 5 minutes, we'll say at 4:50, we're gonna start with our student presentations, and you do not want to leave. You will be.
No, you don't. These are awesome projects. Yeah, very cool project. Okay, thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Amy Lou. That was amazing and inspirational, and I think I hope that we all felt the passion that Amy has, not just for immersive media, but for connecting and following our dreams and our passions and our ideas, and being led in unexpected ways. So thank you so much, Amy Lou. Okay, so in a few minutes we'll have our students starting up here, and yeah, we'll get going. So I would say take a stretch outside, but this venue doesn't have a balcony, but you know, maybe take a turn about the room, and we'll be back here in a few minutes.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Great job, Amy Lou. Bloop, bloop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Nice.
Awesome. I'm excited to hear the students. Like, hi. Let's sing hi. Hi.
Your presentation was amazing.
This is
especially
Bridget.
on how you've been using it.
It's kind of a
The immersive side of
VR
having
yeah.
people feel the empathy.
So you're in this
So
event.
thanks.
I'm
It's
curious to
in the
know-
meet.
Not really sure what happened.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
it's Melina.
Look
know
around,
if, like, how
Okay,
you
put together
I guess,
that
that
kind of-
immersive.
little
Is it
update.
in schools or in hospitals?
Oh, let you go.
Or like in
Yeah.
museums?
Yeah.
I was gonna say for our first presentation.
We create
I guess the
training
students, they
for
want to have a little
enterprise
Am I
companies.
starting to talk? Is it?
So
No,
these
so
have
what they're going to
been,
do
I'm
is
going to
they're
move
going to
this closer to you
have
because all the
Because I'm starting with
They'll do their
So these
presentations
have
and
been
then
part
people
of
can
Yeah,
go
yeah, I'm
to
gonna
different
try to
stations
finish
workshops
and
and
starting
programs.
or what, right,
Um,
right.
and
That's
we
probably the
actually
easier
Okay.
advantage.
had one of them released
Yep,
externally.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much my
Oh,
first
these
called
should
Women
be
in
there.
Tech.
There's some of
I'm
them.
just
And
like going through
it
and
Hit
making
me
is
up
an
on
sure
email
immersive
if you need anything,
experience
and how's
that
it going?
Cool,
helps
cool.
We're doing pretty good,
demonstrate
yeah?
gender,
I think it's going really
I
good.
also
the
wanted to
differences
chat
in
about
We're just
experience
looking
Penny
at the,
at the workplace
right
from
before
gender
the
differences.
rooms, and it's like
So you can
Okay.
find that on VR for
we
Good.
got
So it's
40, we got
Mackenzie, then us, then
69
Facebook has
people
released
so far.
yeah,
So
VR for
I think
Inclusion. I
we
think it's
maxed out for a bit there, which was awesome.
fdvrinclusion.com.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
it
And you
seems
can,
pretty
if you've
well
got an
studied.
unbranded and
40
other-
people in this room
And there's other people
and
that
30
create
people in the
VR
other
for
room.
good, like
So
VR
70 people
inclusive.
total, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's,
Say that
that's
one more time.
amazing. And I think, we really did need front row because,
Can you repeat
obviously
that?
that's the reason the second room
I think
opened
I'm
up.
putting
I'll
on
keep
something
monitoring
today.
and
I'm
once
so
sort of the
sorry.
both numbers sort
No,
of settle
that's
down
no.
to like a nice number that's,
VR
I
for
don't know,
good. That's
way
the
below
Oh.
70, then we'll try to
Right,
move
so
those people into the
Oculus
main
has
room.
a
I can read
That'd be great.
like a department,
So
I don't know,
I think
like a
that's something
platform
that
called
you
VR for
guys should be able
Good,
to do that too. I don't know.
where they
Maybe
can
we'll do it
showcase
together when that happens. So, anyways, I'm just
Sounds good.
monitoring
social
that.
good
And,
projects.
it's just, we don't
And
want to have 5
ours
people
is
in
called
that
Women
space.
in Tech, and it was actually
16
released by
here.
Yeah.
Facebook.
Make
We
sure it's,
developed it for
a nice
Facebook,
balance.
and they
I might
gave it to
have
the
to,
world. So if you have an
the
Oculus,
space might be reset,
you can
so
find
maybe
it
that we want to just
in
let everybody know about too. So
in the VR for Good
Same.
platform.
just,
Yeah, and you
we'll
can
communicate that if that happens.
Amazing.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I
You
just
can
saw
use
that
it
we
in, like,
added each
training.
other.
Awesome. All right, we'll keep
I
it
just
up.
saw that we added
Good
each
stuff.
other
Yeah,
as friends.
thanks. Sounds like
I
you've got
also
some
have a
people that are
teacher
going to be
I'm so
really
sorry,
interested in
I'm
using
not
this
able
for
to
future
hear.
events. So that's always
This is how
good.
we're-
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm trying to help
But
up
here,
there.
Just
I'm gonna
browse
accept
the
you as a
control.
friend.
Stole my thunder, so that's not it. It's Mike, whatever.
We can't
I
have a
was just saying,
conversation here.
anybody has questions like that, just
Yes,
feel free to
great.
shoot them over to
Thank you so
events
much.
at
Thanks,
VR.com.
Vanina.
And that's
Hi.
just sort of our big catch-all
No,
email.
no, I'm with
Or
you.
Oh, you're,
if you have the wherewithal to
this is the
forward them
friend
my
that you
email
mentioned
in
during the.
the
Yes,
contact
yes,
or
yes.
whatever, but
She's a,
just send them events
she
at
runs for
altvr.com.
very
We can
big
get those big,
events for a
conference
lot of
talks
corporate
going.
clients that we have here. We're from Montreal.
Awesome, will do.
We're based in
Yeah.
Montreal.
I'm business staff. For companies.
Right, yeah.
Like,
Events,
events, staff.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
events
we're just really
all
like I said,
VR.com,
really
yeah.
impressed about
So
this
how
whole
goes
thing.
your
I convinced her to get
All right.
a headset because I thought this is something that
Yeah.
we should move onto.
Looks like we have
And
25
we're kind of
people in
having the
another space.
transition. We're
There's
happy to
actually
see
quite a
there's
few
a lot
people
of
here.
Really
other
hard to
creative
Yeah, well,
professionals
we
that are
maxed
really
out more
developing
than
their
a little bit. We had
Doesn't
this room
work.
full, and then it
But
started
you can-
going, and then
You can also
we
do this
balanced out
trash
around
video of just this
7
amount of
people.
people
So
in the
Yeah, hot
system.
beverage.
Yeah.
With
But
the audio.
usually, I think sometimes
Yeah.
people make it too strong with the idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure how
and
much
then
mingling you want to do between two
But
spaces.
it does get very chaotic when there's a lot of people, so maybe
controlling,
consider
The camel.
even on the
experience in that
back
second
end,
Yeah,
space,
when
that's
you do
really
these
yeah.
events,
just
on
kind
the
of
on the back end to be
sometimes
able
just
to
really
really
don't hang in
team
the second
and
space.
everybody
So
else.
that's doing a great
So
job. I'm
you-
gonna head over
But
there.
if there's a
Stop
way for you
All right,
to be
thanks.
selecting 4 people and it becomes like a
Right.
bubble
Go
where you
VR.
have just a personal conversation with
So I
4
see
people isolated
phones
from
model
everybody
with
else.
it.
Okay, so
Could be a
Mackenzie's
really
out.
cool
Yeah.
thing
I
for
think-
some of
I
the
think
guys.
everyone wants that feature. They're calling it the silence feature.
Okay.
I haven't
I
heard
think
her
people
say
want
one.
that. Yeah, it's a sphere. But it is interesting though, isn't it? That as cartoon characters, the sorts of sense of presence
Yeah,
you feel,
pretty
and that you start to
Hello?
feel like you can really connect with someone, is
Towards
kind of
the end of the
wild.
Yeah,
presentation,
yeah, I mean,
Just
it's
gonna
fine,
hop over to
but
that
it's
other room for a
just
second,
mind
and then we'll be back before we get
to
started.
think
I
that
heard some
it's
whispering.
not
1
like
minute.
necessarily by choice,
Oh,
but because we have to adapt as human beings, right? The fact is, it's either you adapt or you stay behind. So it's so that's what I was telling you, we have to advance, and I love that you're actually doing stuff like that in regards to the VR, AR experiences that you're creating. to-
What's good, girl?
to the employers, and
What?
It's amazing.
What's good, girl?
That upwards
good?
completely crazy. Like, I love it.
Thank you.
I have my
Thank you.
amplifier turned up.
So we actually, our first immersive experience that we created was about 3 years ago, which doesn't sound like a long time, but it's like VR is like, it's like dog years or something. It's like 7 years, almost like,
We're all
you know,
so
7
proud.
to 10 years is what changes. So
Yeah.
I think the really
Most
curious
of
thing for me is
wait for a moment.
interested
You can always
I've
tell when
been
someone's
in
in
the
all
theory
like
behind
their head
horror
is- yeah, like they're
things
asleep. It's kind of like teaching.
Not just
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
I'm used to it.
and so that's really where my
You can tell.
my interest is being drawn.
Yeah,
I really like what you've
That's
done
really
here.
where my interest is being drawn.
Thank you.
It's
It's been a lot of work from the whole team and a lot of support from the folks at Allspace, so it's been really great. A lot of last minute learning and getting some of these things working, so that's been fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it has.
And it's where's
A lot of technology
the college located?
So
It's in Canada,
she said
or-
that
Outside of- yeah,
it was
outside
supposed to be
of
a real
Alberta.
world, and then you transferred
Okay.
it here.
Southern Alberta.
Yeah, we had always planned to have this lab space available
Southern Alberta, I work
as
at
a virtual
Lethbridge
reality
too.
space for people to
Hey, hey,
participate
Chris, how
in.
you
So we were
doing?
going to live
Hey, great. How are you?
I'm looking for
in 360
so the students
into
can do
Allspace
presentation
from the
individually.
physical event.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
when we
Their
got
final
the,
projects, exactly.
You're gonna go through
the notice that the first day
Yeah,
we couldn't
it
travel,
sounds
so then we were going to bring her
It
in
sounds good.
virtually. Anyway,
Hi,
and
Amy.
then
That was a
actually
great
our college
presentation.
recently just
Oh, thank you
closed
so
as
much.
well, so
I
we are
literally
able to
did have a
business
dream
classes, which most people are
five
in that
days
same
ago that
boat.
made
And
me
so it was really quick pivot for us, but we had done
Yeah,
this
well,
for 2
that was
years
perfect.
this
And I
way,
love
so
the
it was
references.
actually
That was
quite
great.
easy
So
for us
well
to
done.
jump into this space and
It's so
and,
weird. I
turn it
don't
into a
like
full
think a
virtual
lot
event
about
right
Dolly
real
Parton,
quick.
but evidently she's
So all the
deep in my
kids have their own
psyche.
headsets at home, so they're all at home.
Guess it just
we
worked
have
out
a few
perfectly.
people in the lab next to
Yeah,
me just because their
yeah, so
computers
tell
weren't
me,
quite beefy
I know
enough
that-
at
I think
home.
we connected
But
on
most of our
LinkedIn, yeah?
students are
Yeah,
are at
exactly.
home right now.
Cool. Well, thanks
Which is
for
great.
sharing some
Hard to
and-
require
and-
some
Hey, are you
courses
gonna
have their
talk
own
more
headsets and
about your
stuff, or is it-
photogrammetry?
Yeah, no
It
problem.
is. It is. Yeah,
Can you
we-
tell a
we
little
had
bit
a
more
yeah,
about the
at the
empathy
beginning
end
of
of
the
things
year.
Just
and the
so
work you're
I
doing
know
with
how to
empathy?
introduce it.
Mostly
Yeah,
because it
Okay. Yeah, no,
was easier to set up with us in the lab with 30 students
Yeah.
rather than
How
just
I
with
use it.
our semester.
So,
Okay.
And
it's
yeah,
my
Sounds
belief
it's such an easy
that
device to
taking
use,
engenders
especially for
empathy,
people who are new to it. So
that and
yeah, that's the
perspective
one that we
taking
had
is
in
a
mind.
really
And they've done really well.
specific act where you consciously try to understand
I think we're
and
gonna get
see the
rolling
world
here.
from
Allison, do you
someone's
wanna?
point of view.
Yeah, talk to you later.
But we sometimes
Best
think
of luck,
that naturally
Mackenzie.
or try to do it. It's actually a skill that we can
I
learn
believe
and
you, son.
develop, and
Thanks.
practicing
Take care.
results in improvement.
All right,
Yeah,
so I hope you've
and-
managed to stretch
and
your
that-
virtual
that's really
legs.
where-
We're gonna get
Sorry,
started
I'm
here with the
distracted.
Yeah, no problem.
presentations.
We'll chat.
To those of you
Yeah,
in
chatting
the second
Yeah,
room,
thank you.
you should be able to hear me. Yeah, you can hear me. So, okay, our first presentation is going to be by Mackenzie. So, first of all, of the people in the audience, how many of you have heard of photogrammetry before? Just a show of hands. Okay, a few of you. So, for those of you who've never heard of it, you're about to see some magic here. Mackenzie has done some photogrammetry of this space that would have been our event space for Merging Reality the past couple of weeks. So I'm going to let him take it away. Mackenzie, where are you? There you are. All right, everyone, round of applause.
Okay, nice to meet you. I am Mackenzie, as Allison has introduced me. As you can see, there's a picture, an old picture of me. I now have red pinkish hair, as you can see on my model. Last year, I graduated from the, I see emojis everywhere. Last year, I graduated from the IT program here, also at the Lethbridge College. Got a summer job working here, and during that time, I heard about the VR program and all the steps they were going through and how much hard work they were going to be doing. And so then coming into this program, then seeing how much hard work they put in to doing stuff like this Merging Realities was amazing for me. But yeah, for this, I like to be a problem solver. And so I like to be given a problem and be like, oh, hey, look, something's wrong, fix it. And I go about fixing it. Also there is my website, so you guys can actually go there, get my contact information and the like. So that way, if you guys have any more questions, you guys can get in contact with me. Next slide, please. Awesome. So yes, I was doing a photogrammetry model. And so what that was using is a program called Metashape. So what Metashape does is it takes pictures that you take of a space, an object, a person, something, and it makes it into a point cloud. What it then does with that point cloud is it then makes a model with the full texture of whatever that object had. So I did a room, so it had the full cables, pallets, boxes laying around, the garbage, everything. It had it all. And then I decided I wanted to also challenge myself. Since I'm a more technical person, I decided to do the photogrammetry because it's more artistic and more design work. And so this was my kind of challenge to it, to try and improve upon the skills I didn't have. As well, though, I also want to challenge my technical skills. So for that, I used Unreal and have been working with that since then. Next slide, please. So the process I went through is I took a bunch of pictures of this space. I took over 1,700. I went a bit overboard, not gonna lie at all. And then what this picture is up above is it is a picture of Metashape actually with the model built all together of a rough copy of what it originally looked like. From this, I then went through a process of dumbing it down so that engines like Unity and Unreal could actually use it a lot easier. This is a process that the instructors have taught me, and through this I was able to make a better model that actually ran a lot easier and nicer on the engines. Now, as of right now, I still don't have it to a place of where I like it, because there's a couple details that I can pick out that I still don't like, so I'm still going around to perfecting it. But otherwise, it is completely working. One other thing I did with this, actually, is I also made it a portfolio piece. So what I did with this is I took out other things that I've done throughout the year, both this semester and last semester, and combined them all into this. So stuff from like the final projects I did for multimedia capture, for modeling, for coding, I combined them all into this room. Next slide, please. So the result, I ended up getting it to go into Unreal and was able to play around with it and was able to get everything to work the way I originally planned it to. I was very happy with this because it means I was able to push myself technically as well as push myself artistically. Because as I mentioned before, I'm not a really artistic guy. I'm more of a technical guy. Coming from IT background of coding and everything like that, I was able to adapt and overcome the obstacles I went through. And the reason I like to showcase this and the reason I'm talking to you all about it is just because this is just something that we've all had to go through. We all had to do photogrammetry, and for some of us, we didn't like it. I was the person that didn't like it, but then being able to go back to it, work with it more, being able to learn more from it, and being able to adapt to all the things coming back to me, it was a really good process. Last slide, please. And so, yeah, I like to consider myself a problem solver of the fact that I found out that there was a skill I didn't have or that wasn't up to tune, and that there were skills I didn't have. And so I went through the process of using photogrammetry to kind of test myself on those extremes. One thing with this that I would like to also point out is this took a lot of time. It took me using a total of, I think, 7 or 8 computers. Oh my God, someone's mic just exploded on me. It took a total of 7 or 8 computers, all running for about 2 weeks straight, combining this giant model and breaking it down. I spent my entire reading break at the college working on this and powering through to make sure that this thing would completely work and that it would be a great model that I could be proud to show off. And yeah, that is my presentation.
Awesome, Mackenzie. Thank you so much. Big round of applause. It's true. During reading week, I would pop into the labs to do a bit of work, and there was Mackenzie trying over and over to render this thing for ridiculous amounts of time, but I think it was absolutely worth it. Okay, so I'm just going to reset a little bit here. I do have a controller dying at the moment. Sorry guys, they only die at the worst times. Let me see. Okay. Oh no. Okay, you will be able to hear me, but I'm not going to be able to do the on-air thing. Tyler, are you able to put our next group on air?
Yeah, I'll make sure that they're on air.
Okay. All right, so, oh, I got it to work for just a second. Perfect. So our next group, Blake and Cohen, they are here to talk to you about Guards Are Gone, which is a super cool escape room style game that they built actually in their first semester. So guys, take it away.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. My name is Blake McDonald.
I'm Cohen Grayson.
And together we created Guards Are Gone as our final assignment for the previous semester. Can we get the next slide, please? Got a nice little video to go with it for you guys. So Guards Are Gone is a short entertainment experience in which the user is tasked with escaping from a dungeon. We started this project by assessing how much time we had, the requirements for our submission, and what our goals were both as individuals and as a team. Once we began to design our experience and plan out the level, we knew that with just the two of us, making a fully fleshed out game within a few weeks was going to be a big task. We had to find ways to modify our workload to ensure we had enough time to include all the features we wanted, while also achieving a high level of quality. We managed to find an awesome asset pack that had all we needed and quickly began working on assembling our game. One of our main goals was to incorporate multiple stages to our experience, and giving it a larger scale while keeping the gameplay relatively simple. We accomplished this by creating a scene with many different rooms, and each room has their own unique objectives and requirements to unlock them. We also decided that the player should be able to view their end goal early on, giving them a clear goal from the start.
So in our design, we found it important to add several diegetic sounds to act as audio cues for the player, such as the lever gate system that'll be shown soon here. It was to make it clear to the player when some form of progress was made, regardless of where they were looking, what their orientation was. To make the space feel more alive, we also placed a lot of sound sources around the rooms, which would randomly select a clip, pitch, and delay time from an array, which would help reduce the stagnation that you'd feel in the environment when you were spending time thinking of solutions. A big part of the design process when choosing to do an escape room was also that we needed interesting interactions. There's lots of escape rooms out there, and we needed something to separate it. So we wanted something beyond just unlocking doors, so we brainstormed how we could incorporate the environment into the puzzles. So we use that space and items in it. We also have this Scooby-Doo style bookshelf that opens when you pull the right book. This allowed us to focus less on the act of unlocking a space and more what that space allowed the player to do.
With our experience, we also really wanted to make sure that we added a lot of diversity throughout our scene. So one of the great examples we have for this was emphasizing the change in atmosphere as you descend into the lower level of the dungeon, which will come up in a bit here for you. This emphasizes the change from the more wholesome environments that we have in the earlier part with our storeroom and the armory, as it just changes into the darker area you find farther below. We accomplished this by changing the variations in lighting and sounds, as well as reducing the quantity of items we find in the area to produce more of a desolate environment. Here's our fun little Scooby-Doo bookshelf for you.
So the main progression of the game sees the player gathering several ingredients. And because of this, we found it important for the user experience to add a sort of active checklist scroll, is what we called it, that the player finds in the main room. And so what this does is gives the player a sense of direction from the very beginning as they see it. It shows instructions, as well as updates in real time when they complete steps, which lets them know what they've done and where they need to go next.
In addition to this, we also decided to help the player navigate through different rooms and in the experience as a whole, we wanted to choose to add different open books throughout it. In those books, they had text written on them, and we used these journals to provide hints of certain a backstory and a narrative to our experience.
And that's our presentation. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, we're just next to the stage here in the main room.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. And honestly, thank you for making marking fun. That was one of the first times I've ever had fun marking, and the instructors had to work together just to complete the task. So what an interesting experience.
Thank you.
Okay, so my hand is working, first of all. That's good news. Even better news, we're going to get our presentation going. So can I get Jade and Brendan, are you guys up here already? Ah, there we go, perfect. Okay, and I can't hear you. Do you have your mics on?
Yeah, is my mic
Got
on?
Brendan, your mic is on. Yep, perfect.
Can you hear me?
Okay, take it away with Gallery VR.
Gallery VR. I'm Jade, by the way.
I'm Brendan.
We decided to do a shooting gallery for our first semester project. If we want to go to the next slide, we can take a look at the first iteration of our project. As you can see, it's kind of pixelated and textures are grainy and it's not very well lit. That was one of the very first things we ran into as a constraint with our design process, is that things in VR can get very cramped very quickly. And so just when deciding to present this for Merging Realities, we decided to remake it from scratch. And if we move to the next slide, we could see as we moved it into the high definition render pipeline that Unity offers, we were able to upgrade the textures and be able to use a high def mod kit that made us produce something a lot more high fidelity. Some of the unique challenges that we ran into while bringing them into the high definition pipeline was that Steam VR doesn't have shaders that are compatible. So we had to make some custom shaders to make Steam VR work effectively in the high definition render pipeline. And as we go to the next video, Brendan can describe some of the interactions that we have for our game.
Yeah, so for the game, what we wanted to do was wanted to make it just so that you could choose from a variety of weapons. So as you can see, we just have like a selection of 3 that basically to equip them, you just put your arm over what weapon you choose, and it just chooses the weapon. So I kind of went back and forth on how I wanted to implement it, because some places I know you can just like pick it up, and others you can just equip it automatically to your weapon or your hand, I mean. So what I decided to do was just equipping it to the hand, and then just have it streamlined so that all the weapons are kind of under the same sort of like control scheme for like firing and reloading and such. And most of the differences are just actually like fire rate and damage dealt and reload speed and that sort of thing. So yeah. Jay, do you want to say anything else?
Well, I remember we had some problems getting the guns to fire initially, and it ended up just being because we forgot to assign the script to the object that we wanted to shoot. So we were scratching our brains for about a weekend trying to get it to work, and it ended up just being something so simple that we just overlooked, and ended up causing us a lot of headache for another reason.
Yeah,
So,
like basically a lot of it was a fun project to work on overall, because we had both of us, we had to learn like a lot of new like not technologies, but just like techniques for like coding and like scene layout and that sort of thing.
yeah, especially collaboration, as one of our team members didn't quite make it through the process, but he lives on with the targets still. But yeah, that's basically Gallery VR in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's so cool. Thank you guys. I honestly haven't seen the latest version of this, and I am just blown away. And I think it really speaks to the resiliency of these students too, where they keep talking about these challenges they faced and how they overcame them, as if it's an important part of the process, because it is. And it's just great to see how you guys have grown. So our next group, Hannah and Taylor, I'll get you guys to come up here. They are going to introduce us to a, I guess, version of high school that I don't know if I'm brave enough to visit, but show us Brighton High.
Can everyone hear me okay?
There we go. Now we can hear you, Hannah. Taylor? Perfect.
Oh, gotta close this. All right.
Hi, I'm Taylor.
I'm Hannah. Hi, everybody.
Next slide.
Yeah, we can switch the slide.
We are students at Lethbridge College in the first run of the virtual and augmented reality program who will be graduating this year. We're also best friends.
So I've always had an interest in technology and computers, and the first time I tried out VR in one of the VR arcades in town, I was hooked, and I knew that VR was the future of gaming. After investing in this immersive technology and putting it in my home, I heard about the new VR and AR program at the college, and I just knew it was meant for me.
I have also always been interested in technology and computers. And then after buying my own computer and trying out some computer science in high school, I just furthered my love for it. After learning about the VR and AR program from Mike and one of my friends, I knew this was the kick in the butt I needed to try out VR and figure out how and why the experiences were getting made. Next slide.
All right, so with inspiration from various horror games like Slender Man, we had settled on the premise that our user would have to go around this creepy school and collect pages or notes with clues on them. On the back of the pages, when they're arranged properly, they would build a map, which would then lead the user to a part of the school that they can escape out of.
We had come up with this idea of doing something creepy since we play a lot of horror games outside of class time already.
You can switch the slide.
We had landed on the idea of an abandoned school with a mysterious background on why its previous inhabitants had already fled.
You can switch the slide again.
Excuse me. I
Yeah,
had
we-
made...
Go ahead.
I had made a few of the assets like the students' and teachers' desks. I'd also created and placed the decals that made the grime the way you see around the school, and also the blackboards in the classroom, while also placing and setting up the scene itself. Besides the creation of lighting and placement of audio, I mainly did the level design and along with the majority of the coding.
Great, you can switch the slide.
Next slide.
So I created the modular assets like the walls and the floors, as well as the lockers. I also made the hatch and key and the notes and their corresponding lore and the story. I oversaw most of the planning for the interactions and was hoping to convey a spooky vibe for this experience. So we do have a gameplay video that we'd like to show you guys. Great, and that's the end of our presentation.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Allison, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
I just wanted, before you introduce the next group, I just wanted to say that was the first time, hi there everyone, that was the first time that I've seen any of those assets or that footage, and I'm completely blown away. You guys did a really great job. You should be proud of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
And I'm not an expert in horror games. I'm too chicken to play them, but I'm pretty sure if you find a hatch in your high school, you should probably not go into it.
Come on, you don't know what's on the other side.
Adventure, right? Yeah, be curious. Okay, so we're gonna change
Alright.
gears a little bit. If I can get Ben over here, where is Ben?
Hello.
Oh, surprise! There he is. So we've talked a lot about VR, but in the program we actually do a little bit of AR as well. So Ben's gonna show us a prototype for an AR application that they've developed.
Yeah, so I'm Ben Blackwell. Thank you all for coming. You can all hear me, right? Yep.
Not very well.
Not very well.
You gotta amplify.
Turn your megaphone.
How about now? Is that better?
There you go.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, so I have developed, with the help of my brother-in-law, Mark Bennett, who's not in the program, but he's a great coder, and he's a great guy to have around for me, this app called Palm Pals. It's an AR app. And the purpose of the app is to try and make an AR experience that's less novel and less, I don't want to say maybe gimmicky, but less gimmicky. Something that people can easily get into and spend time with, and can enjoy AR and get a little more accustomed to using it. If we go to the next slide, please. So the idea behind this app is called Palm Pals, as you saw. It's virtual pets. I kind of got inspired by things like Tamagotchi or Neopets, even Pokemon Go a little bit. But the idea is that you have a virtual pet that you can bring into your real life space using AR tracking. And the goal is to try and fit it onto like a desk space or a tabletop, something small that you can sit down with and interact with and play with. You don't need a large amount of space for it. You can do it in your office. You can do it in your bedroom or at home. You could do it for all age groups. It's for kids and adults. And it's something that I want a progression system to, so that you get accustomed to your pets and they become accustomed to you, and you have a sort of bond with them, like Tamagotchi or other older style pets like that. This is just trying to bring it more into the 21st century and into this new technology. Next slide, please. So currently there's only one pet right now, and I've made him myself. I modeled him and rigged him and animated him myself, and that took a lot of effort on its own. So the app is still in its infancy. It's still very in development. It doesn't have a ton of gameplay, but we are using the AR core system to develop this app. For this program, we were learning a different system called MaxST. I felt like it was a little bit, it didn't quite offer what we were looking for, so we switched over to AR core, which has its own development pipeline and its own issues, but it's definitely a powerful tool to use. So the core gameplay, I guess you could say, or the gameplay loop of this app would be that you, when you start up, you get an egg, and then you hatch that egg, and there's a randomized pet inside, and that pet will be your pet. You'll own it, and you'll be able to play mini games with it and interact with it and train it in different skills to be able to compete with other people's pets. You could, like, simple things like racing or obstacle courses, just little mini games that you can compete with your friends with. And the goal is to bring that all into the virtual space, or the augmented space, so that you can see your friends' pets through your own phone, and you can see your pets through your own phone, and they can interact with each other in real time using your phone. And then, of course, you can get more pets through gameplay. You can customize their appearance or add little accessories to them. Again, currently we only have the one, but having learned how to do this, it becomes easier as you go. Next slide, please. So the idea for tracking that we're using is the marker-based system. There's AR can be done without markers, and it's pretty common to do it without markers. There's obviously things like face tracking, like Snapchat filters, where it can detect a face, and then it can overlay information over that. There's also markerless tracking, where it just scans like a flat area, and then it can project an image onto that flat area. We found that currently, as the technology is right now, marker tracking offers the most consistent and reliable tracking, and it can also be used with what's called fusion tracking, which allows the camera to maintain focus on that augmented image, even if it's not on screen. So even if you move your camera away, you can bring it back to that area and it'll reappear in that same area. There's an obvious logistical issue of distributing markers to every user. So for launch, we're going to create we already have a website up, but we're creating print off and use it on the table or use wherever you are, and it'll spawn that creature on that marker, and then that marker will just act as an anchor point, and your pet will be able to interact with you outside that area. Yeah, so there is a YouTube video that just kind of demonstrates tracking, and it's got SpongeBob music, but yeah. Yeah, so that's my presentation. Thank you all for attending and listening.
Oh my God, Ben, that was so cute. When you mentioned Tamagotchis, my heart skipped a beat. I don't know how many people in this room are old enough to remember Tamagotchis. They're starting to become dated, I think. Yeah, there we go. We got someone who's proud about it. But with the rise of Pokemon Go, we saw a lot of people wanting to engage with this kind of thing, but Pokemon Go didn't allow you to engage with the pet. So I know if I had this app, you would absolutely see me at my desk petting my little digital critters. So awesome. I can't wait to see more of it.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to change gears a little bit back to VR this time, and we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of specific design considerations in projects. In this case, level design. So creating the worlds that we all live in inside of VR is a pretty complicated task. So I see Kenny. Where's Ethan? Kenny, perfect. Can I get you guys to come up here? And they're going to show us some really cool level design that they've been working on. I'll just do a mic test on you guys.
Yep. Am I good?
He's good. Okay.
Am I audible?
Yep, all good.
Okay, perfect. Greetings, everyone. I'm Ken Lastuca, and
I'm Ethan Sears.
And today we are presenting our perspective on level designing for VR specifically. So you can go to the next slide, sorry. So as you can see in the original image, that basically what we went with was more of a centralized VR hub that could be applied to either a social aspect, much like AltSpace, or into a more streamlined single-player experience. And my previous experience with level design, which is something I personally like to specialize in, I always like to kind of keep my cohesion with design and the block out consistent. So with the overall design aesthetic, I based it off a block out, sketched it out on good old pen and paper, transitioned it into Unity, and thanks to the use of this wonderful asset pack, which is a dream come true for a level designer like me. The philosophy I love to use is I'm basically given a box of Legos, and I'm told to, let my creativity soar. And so, but like I said, I like to keep that within constraint, within that unification, within design structure and player progression. I believe we can go to the next slide.
And so here we also, I went in on this with the environmental storytelling. So we have our main hub set up, but we also have a couple of rooms where I populated it with a few items. In this case, we've got a generator room. And in this space, in most of the space, in all of them, I've tried to put in like 3 main points that inform the audience or user about what's going on. So clearly you can see that the generator in the back is brightly colored. That draws the eye. whoever is operating this place needs to keep it running. So that's the first thing you notice. And then you've got this blue orb here. That's in my logic, it's the beacon. So he needs the generator on to keep that running. And he's got the screen on the left. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a little loading screen in there. It's a 75%. And that little detail informs you that there's some kind of work going on here. I just grabbed a basic design image pretty much from an engineering site, from Google really. Just pop that on there, and I've basically made it such that it's very obviously a technical room. On the actual blue readout here, you've got like power numbers and whatnot. So when upon this, you can tell that it's very obviously a generator room. And then you've got a couple of bottles laid around showing there is somebody here, and they have been here rather recently, but they're also probably not the only one here. Or they probably are the only one here because you can see these, especially this one on the floor there. It has yet to be picked up, so whoever's there is not entirely up on the thing. But with the idle screens, you can see that it's very clearly some kind of probably a military installation. So if there's anybody else here, clearly he has someone telling him to clean up, but there's no one else there, so he's the only one by himself. Next slide, please. And then here you see the barracks of this place. So you've got all of these bunk beds where plenty of people would be able to sleep, but because you've only got the one that's actually occupied, it instantly tells you that there's probably only one person here. You got those bottles again to reinforce the fact that there's someone here living here. And then you've got the hat and the rifle there are intended to show that this is where he rests, because he's got his hat resting there, the rifle's leaning against the bed. So very much the positioning and the placement of objects in a space can tell you a lot about the space. With this one specifically, I would have liked to put up in the background, you can see there's a big bulletin board. Ideally, I would have put another screen there and put that logo you saw in the last room just to make it obvious it's the same place, but that's for a later date. This is still very much a working idea, but you can tell a lot from very simple things. And the next slide, please. And then just for this one, you've got the cafeteria. So you've got that vending machine where it shows where all of these bottles keep coming from in this base. And then you've got the one position where that's where the person keeps coming back to eat. They have their ritual or some kind of habit. You've got the color in this space also illustrates the purpose of this place. So you've got the art in the back. It's meant to be mentally rejuvenating as well as physically nutrients, right? So you've got a place of rest, even in a larger base of work, if you will. And then with the chairs being all perfectly lined up, there's nobody else using them. The one off to the side, there's only one person here. So I've really just done what I can to illustrate the fact that you can put a lot of storytelling with just a few items. Like some of the best video games I've ever experienced have really made use of this. And I just, in VR, it's really been an opportunity for me to literally show people the kinds of things that I find effective as opposed to just trying to describe it. And now here it is.
And one thing to mention as well is with me making the core central structure of the actual level and all that, with making it, I made it with the intention that it could be populated by a variety of things. So collaborating with Ethan gave us the opportunity to kind of express ourselves in very unique ways, and having me do that portion, have it sign off to him, and have that collaboration be as unified as I was mentioning with the overall design structure and aesthetics of the environment. So perfect, yeah. Other than that, yeah. Anything else?
I was just going to mention how it was also an excellent, like Kenny mentioned, we collaborated on this, and there were a couple of times where we'd have the project we'd send to one of us, and we'd do some work, run into a bit of a hiccup, be like, hey, I have an issue with this, we'd send it back. Whereas the other person would, like at one point I had like an issue with the layout itself of one of the rooms, so I sent the whole thing back to Ken. He manipulated the room a bit because he knew what he was doing with that. And then he sent it back to me and I repopulated. So it's an excellent experience and exercise in collaboration. And just because you've got the one work doesn't mean you're the only one doing anything with it.
Mm-hmm. One thing I would mention, though, one thing that could be worked on is the lighting. I was more focused on the design and whatnot, so lighting would definitely be something to improve. It's pretty basic at the moment, but yeah, I get the whole design philosophy is what needs to be showcased, but we're pretty proud of what we've done, and yeah, definitely. Thank you very much.
Awesome, great work, guys. It's interesting the way that we need to think about creating digital spaces. We take for granted sometimes the spaces that we live in the real world and the stories that they tell about us. I like to pretend that all the coffee cups on my desk don't say anything about me, but they absolutely do. So thank you guys, and great job. All right, so speaking of level design, we had talked a little bit earlier about how a lot of people use VR to escape, to go to worlds that we can't necessarily go to, especially in times like these. So we're gonna hop into another world, this one kind of more serene. So I'm gonna bring up some familiar faces and a new one. So Cohen, Mackenzie, Connor, and Blake. Bring you up here, and they're gonna show us the Autumn Onsen.
All right, so again, I'm Cohen Grierson. Oh, here, one sec. I'll amplify myself. All right, so yeah, again, I'm Cohen Grierson. This is our project Autumn Onsen. The assignment was based on modularity and had several constraints on the asset count, the shader count, and material count, which made it pretty interesting. Being a visual project, we wanted to make something with an aesthetic that we all enjoyed. So we decided to try a Japanese onsen, while taking inspiration from some other outdoor spaces. If we could go to the next slide. So my contributions were the modular wall, floor, and roof sections, as well as the cherry blossom shader you can see on the ground. When discussing the modularity aspect, the main consideration was how complex the system needed to be to achieve our project goals without going too crazy. Because the space was fairly simplistic in shape, we decided to join the walls, floor, and roof into interlocking blocks, which could be placed next to each other. And this allowed us to resize the space at a moment's notice without much trouble. The goals of the cherry blossom shader you can see on the ground was for it to be paintable on any surface. And to do that, we needed to use a universal texture map, so the shader could be painted between the two states anywhere. We feel the simplistic art style of the map ended up adding to the calm and soothing feeling we were trying to achieve here.
Everything's not working. There we go. Hello again, I'm Mackenzie. For this project, I was in charge of making the lanterns work, as well as working on the decals. So the decals were the scuff marks on the wood, on the pillars, as well as the painting that you guys saw earlier in the video. I also was in charge of making the table and the pillows. For the process of making the lanterns, we went back and forth over what design we liked the most, and that's kind of what I liked about this project, is that we did a lot of world building and world design together. And then for the lanterns, the biggest creative piece we had was we made them a missive. And now I'll direct you over to Connor.
Hey everybody, I'm Connor. I created the centerpiece rock and tree model for the project. We wanted to stick to a low poly theme, so we had to keep the rock and tree in a limited size and shape. The style of the tree is inspired by bonsai, and I tried to keep it as realistic as I could, considering the constraints of the project. We have a spot carved out in the rock to place one of our lanterns in. This really highlights the centerpiece and adds some more great reflections on the water. I also created the tea set in the side room, trying to keep it simple and traditional. Used a trim sheet to add some finer details, like the bands on the pillars and the slats on the rice paper walls. Trim sheet was also used to add small ornamental carvings on the roof beams. Thanks, Blake.
All right. Hi again, everyone. My name is Blake McDonald, and I created the particle systems, the water, and the katanas. Using Unity's visual effects and shader graphs, my goal was to bring light into our environment. With this in mind, I chose to create fireflies to bring light and movement to the scene. The spirit particle that was designed to mimic the colors and movement of a koi fish was also chosen to help draw attention towards our centerpiece. Not only are these thematic, but they contribute to a magical and serene atmosphere. With the water, I wanted to incorporate movement, illumination, and reflection, and a general mystic atmosphere. To do this, I chose to use a deep blue with bright teal ripples and a light reflections from the surroundings. I incorporated the scene depth and the camera view to help create the visual interaction between where the water intersects with any surrounding objects. Finally, I also created the katanas to add additional interest and interactivity. To give the swords more character, I made the sheets black and used the petal shader to add vibrant detail. I added simple geometry to the handles, which let me mimic fabric wrapped on the hilt. And thank you all very much for listening. We hope you enjoyed our presentation, and if you guys have any questions, you can find us next to the stage once all the presentations are done.
Allison, you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, good. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to talk about how calm and serene that space feels. I really wish I could just spend an afternoon in there sipping some tea. And the students keep talking about the constraints that they work under, and we do put them under constraints. It's time constraints. In this case, they were limited by the number of objects they could use, but also the constraints of their learning this while they're doing it. And it's just incredible to see, because you've probably heard from Mike and I that sometimes we don't see these projects until they're presented like this, and just to see how far they can come in that amount of time. So going back a little bit to the idea of space and the fact that we're all sort of cooped up inside right now, how many of you have been able to exercise? Like almost no one. I got a few people. I am one of those people who finds it really hard to exercise when I'm at home if I don't have motivation. And this next project is going to give you motivation. So can I get Sean up here? There he is. He's going to talk about a project he worked on called BattleFit.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming during this unpredictable time. And I'd like to point a silver lining that VR is getting more exposure in the media than in previous years. I've found that there's rarely one way to do something, and physical fitness is a prime example of this. Another thing I found throughout my life is that for me, doing reps at the gym is not for me. When playing games in VR, I noticed that I would push myself harder because there was something at stake, and my mind wanted to keep going. I noticed this while I was playing a game called Quiver. After 30 minutes of shooting arrows, I noticed that my shoulders and arms were starting to feel it, but I had no desire to stop and take a break. I could hear my friend in the microphone panting and breathing really heavy, and I could tell that this was probably the most exercise that he had gotten in a long while. For me, I needed to defend my door and push the enemy back, regardless of my sore arms and shoulders. Having this experience filled my mind with the possibilities of VR fitness and medical physiotherapy. So, with collaboration from my classmates Kenny and Christian, the concept of BattleFit was born. BattleFit offers a quick jump in, play a couple rounds, jump out style of gameplay. This would be great for parties and in the future, VR gyms. We wanted to create a fun way to get the body moving and to get exercise. So to us, fighting a fast robot that's trying to hurt us allowed our minds to access that fight or flight response, pushing us to punch, dodge, and do squats to avoid our opponent's attacks. The opponent was sized to be intimidating, but not overwhelming. As we progressed through the development of this experience, I found I really enjoyed animating the character and programming its movements. While working with the team to create the look and feel of the game, we were able to design a futuristic boxing ring to bring the sense that you are actually in a physical location working out. We all know the power of music and its effect of pumping us up. So BattleFit comes with a random audio selector that plays fast-paced techno track to charge you up as you go throughout the experience. I had made 6 audio tracks and 4 were used for the game. The tracks were made using an audio sampler that looped, so no matter how long you played, it didn't really repeat too much. You could sense some repetition, but the game could go on as long as you wanted to keep going. So with the combination of the audio tracks, the environment, and the menacing robot trying to destroy you, our goal was for this to push the user to be motivated to move and improve their physical fitness in a fun and an immersive way. Next slide. So as you can see here, the robot is quite menacing. It is quite large. And with future developments, we hope that this can be used for retirement homes to provide an additional experience that could be slowed down or sped up as needed. Maybe we also want to develop things like changing the characters, changing where you're fighting. Maybe you want to be on the top of a mountain fighting an orc. There's lots of different opportunities and directions that this could go in. Next slide. BattleFit was fun to make, and although it pushed me to learn a lot of new processes and spend a lot of extra time learning all the different aspects of animation that you can see a little bit here with the Unity animation preview, I was really excited to grow my skill set and take on new challenges. And I'm excited to continue my learning and really break the box of what virtual reality can do for us as a society. And if anyone's interested in chatting more about what I'm working on next, come find me and I'd love to chat with you. Thank you.
Awesome, Sean. That was another really cool one to mark. Let me tell you, dodging giant robot punches is a great way to end a day. And Sean was talking about self-teaching and self-learning. He self-taught himself how to rig and animate and go through the whole pipeline into Unity the semester before we even had a chance to touch it. So incredible, incredible work, Sean. All right, so where is Riley? He is our next up. Okay, so much like Hannah and Taylor, Riley is going to bring us to yet another creepy world, the Village of Dread, a scene that he created in Unity. Take it away, Riley.
All right, so this program started with the intention of dabbling in the realm of looking at phobias and how people can get past their fears through subtle exposure to those things. And so I wanted to create an environment that had that without going too far. So I had to take some time and think about what needed to be there for the environment I wanted to have and what would be too far, what would be too easy as well, and also meeting requirements for that. So next slide, please. So what I focused on was creating huts and spears and light sources that would feel natural to an African savanna, and also have some normal danger there that would bring that kind of fear in that you might experience. And then I just killed the lights as far as I could while still having something visible to work with, so you weren't just stuck in the pitch black and wondering where you were put. And the challenges I faced with this was I eventually hit the hiccup of needing decals to add some more fear elements in, but I hadn't put it in HDRP. So I had to switch it over and watch everything turn purple, and then take that further into replacing all those textures to where they wanted to be. And through that, I was able to achieve the more visually appealing assets without cost of the project looking the way I wanted it to look. And next slide, please. The one element I was chasing for a while that took a few instructors helped me out find it was getting those eyes in the background to be in a presence of not being unrealistic, but always being visible. And so we tried to do reflective surfaces, which failed because I wasn't quite ready for those shaders. But it ended up being something where we just put a missive material on them and let them just kind of hang out, but move with you. So if you got too close, it kind of hunted you. So you always felt like someone was watching you to keep that feeling of uneasiness in the space. And but I always want people centered. So if I could get the next slide. Oh, never mind. I put a really big tree in there, and I wanted that tree to be kind of your safe haven. And it took me, I think, 6 hours just to make that tree, because I wanted it to feel real, and it had to be enormous to make you feel safe, so that if you ever felt like it was going too far, you had somewhere to go. And yeah, so the entire project was just chasing that feeling of wanting to make you feel uneasy, but give you a chance to kind of overcome that versus making any fears worse. And it was a fun time, and I need to go back and visit it now with more shader knowledge to make it feel even better. But yeah, that's what that project is.
All right, great job with this project. The eyes really got me, and it's funny how much that adds to a scene, I think, just having that little bit of narrative in there. Riley also touched a bit on challenges again, but also putting the user in a situation where they need to deal with challenges or overcome it. And I think that's one of the reasons that we love escape rooms so much. So I'm going to get Richard up here to show the escape room that he made. Can I just get a mic check on you there, Richard?
Yeah, I'm right here. I'm just going to turn on my
perfect
amplification right now and go on air. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You have the stage.
Okay. I'm Richard Papp. I'm a student, obviously. And I'm presenting a final project from last semester. I worked on it with Hannah and Drayden. Hannah did the level design, and Drayden built the level. And we all did coding, but I took the lead in there. And that's what I'm here to talk about. Some of the challenges we ran into as new developers working together. As you can see, or maybe you can't, I'm not sure how well your headsets are working. This is the first room of our experience. Next slide, please. And this is a long view of the final room with the gameplay and our experience. If it looks and feels familiar, it's because it's an homage to Portal. Next slide, please. What I'm here to talk about is coding and what we did and what we learned from this experience. And my primary takeaway is that working on code as a group is hard, that we should have thought about version control way more than we did, as we very quickly ended up with 3 forks of the same experience, and we ended up duplicating work and introducing bugs while we were trying to fix things. For instance, in the end, I didn't even have a full copy of our final build after everything was said and done. So I used slides from the build that I did have. Now, this is a design course, and the big lesson from having adversity is how to prepare for it in the future and how to deal with it when it occurs. And I can definitely say that all the students in our VR course have very strong coping skills. But design is about planning and executing what you plan and being able to avoid pitfalls you know are coming. When we started working on this project, it was quite a ways in the future, and we completed the level design very early on and assigned roles to divide work, and then left everyone to work on their part of the project. This was our first mistake. We didn't really check in and make sure we all had access to the build. So when one of us wasn't in for a week, all progress stalled. But now you're asking, what does that have to do with code? Well, code is about design. Next slide, please. Now, this cube here was the bane of my existence. I hate this cube. I would eat it into space if I could. And because I'm a VR developer, I did. It was cathartic, but I didn't improve my relationship with it. I couldn't get the cube to appear when the 2 levers were moved to the correct position. I got it to work mostly by jangling the lever like a set of keys. Not at all optimal. As a group, we spent a lot of time trying to get the levers to behave. We could have been using that time to polish the rest of the experience, but hindsight is 20/20, and this isn't as good as it looked. Hannah did an awesome job. In the end, the problem wasn't necessarily that I couldn't get the code to work at that moment. It was that I couldn't get the code to work that matched our design. If we were willing to change our minds on either, I probably wouldn't hate this cube as much. We could have changed the design, we could have modified the scope, and we did do that through the course of the project, changing and modifying the design, just as much as we needed to modify the code. So it came down to crunch time, and still the levers in this cube mocked me. But then it happened, a single word changing from enter to stay fixed it. Then I loved this cube. All the hate I had for it evaporated and was replaced with a feeling of accomplishment and pride. See this cube? I made this. We could have fixed it by switching the levers for buttons or a dial, but we wanted levers. We chose the design, which chose the code. Next slide, please. But if you're a fan of Portal, you understand Portal is a game that plays with your feelings of accomplishment and pride. Coding and design are very similar games when you get right down to it. For me, it was a triumph. I made a note here, it was a huge success. The cake, however you like it in Portal, and in like our experience, by extension in coding and design, is a lie. In VR, you can change the cake, the code, the design. So the primary lesson learned is that with a good team, you can overcome adversity in whatever form it takes. But the game doesn't change, and you still end up hating the cube. And I think that's the end of my presentation.
Great job, Richard. I love the fact that being in a room of developers, you can talk about this sort of visceral hatred for a cube and why it gave you so much grief, and we all get it. We all understand. but you're, All right, so speaking of creativity, we're going to go back to a spooky place. I'm sensing a trend here, guys. A lot of spooky places coming out of this group, but this one has a real twist on it, and I would love to see if any of you recognize it. So, where are you? There we go. David, I'll get you to come on up here. Put yourself on air. All right, and tell us about your cultist room. Oh, we just can't quite hear you there, David.
Hello?
There we go.
Hey, perfect. So, hello there, guys. My name is David Balkowski. As Amy Lou said, I came into this program not knowing a single thing about anything to do with creating a game or experience on a computer. I had always played video games as a young kid, but I never knew anything about modeling, about, audio design, or any game design to start with. So when I came in, I wanted to make something unique. I wanted to make something that I'd seen in games or experiences, but I had never truly done, or make it somewhat different in my own unique way. So I decided to settle on making a cultist room for my first experience last year. This was my modeling final. I decided to make it as something unique, something different. So for my cultist room, I chose not just to make it a cultist room following all the tropes. I decided to make it a cultist room to the flying spaghetti monster, Pastafarian. If you could go to the next slide, please, Tyler. So I chose things that would make the scene seem like a cultist room to a spaghetti monster. I made a spaghetti strainer with holes in it for a donation box type of thing instead of just using a box. And then the next slide there, Tyler. I tried to make the scene very dark. The lighting, I wanted mostly the lighting to be the most important thing in my scene. So I chose that my lights would be a only candle lit scene. I chose very dark orange, and I tried to make the scene contrast itself as much as I could. For the scene, I didn't get to complete it to the way I wanted it to. The things I would add, I wanted to add some sort of story element, though I did get to add kind of a rudimentary sense of what it was. I wanted to add a story element as you were a person that had come into the scene and a ritual had been performed on you. And you had come in, you turned into a spaghetti person with sauce dripping down your hands. And you just kind of had to piece together the scene by looking around and seeing everything. So if you could go to the next slide there, Tyler. So my first issue was filling the scene, as I didn't really think about how much time I needed to make all these different objects to fill the scene with, rather than just making a select few and realizing halfway through I needed more objects. I looked around to fill my scene with more things that you would find in a dark, deep basement, something that had been hidden away that only exclusive memories would know about. So I found some barrels put in corners, implying that they were full of spaghetti sauce was one of the things I didn't get to do. Looking back, I would now add the decal of some sauce dripping out of the barrels rather than just leaving them in the corner. I made it so that it was almost like a preacher's sermon, as if you were standing in church, right? You have a gigantic lectern there with a large figure of what your God was supposed to be, or figurehead. And that it was implied that someone was standing behind there and preaching to their people and telling them about this person. Next slide, please there, Tyler. So that is the final layout of my scene. And looking back, there's a lot more I could do and I still want to do, as it's not in a finished state that I would put out. I would love to go back and change it from just a normal pipeline to a high render pipeline and add a lot more shaders to it, as over the course of this semester, I've learned a lot about shaders, and I've hard-coded shaders to do a lot of strange things, such as writing down on snow, and you can draw on the snow and it will change the snow to have footprints on it, snow tracks, things like that. And yeah, that is my scene and that's my presentation.
Oh, that is so cool. That gives me like old school Doom Quake vibes. Anyone like kind of old school gamer like that? It's funny, David mentioned being inspired by games, and I think a lot of us are, even if we're not wanting to be game developers. I think we can use those skills for other things. And this next project is sort of an interesting mix of that inspiration and our newfound skills. So if I could get Shane to come on up here. Is that you? Yes, it is. All right, and he's going to talk to us about a photogrammetry project that he did. Okay, do a mic check first.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me? Yeah? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I started the virtual reality course, I had played a lot of virtual reality games, spent a lot of time doing that in my home, and I never really wanted to make games. I enjoy playing them. I don't want to make them. What I wanted to do was make experiences for people who maybe couldn't do something or cost a lot of money to do in the real world. So this is my museum project. It's a basic concept of what a virtual reality museum could be. I used photogrammetry to create the model of Mario you see in the middle there. Using photogrammetry, you can make a model of basically anything and bring it into a virtual world so people can see it, manipulate it, do things that you wouldn't be able to do in a real museum, especially touch. Next slide, please. This is the closer up picture of the model itself. The concept of the project was to do a museum that's 100 years in the future. So that's why the model looks a little beat up and bruised because it's old. But you can still pick it up, move it around, see what it was and what it can do. And what Mario was to people and the slide. Using things like this podium here, you can add pictures of the real object so that people can see what it looks like in real life. You can add buttons and cap windows and whatnot to add a lot more information than you could find at a museum. It wouldn't be limited to how big a space you have on the podium because you can pop it up, play with it, and do that kind of stuff. And add a lot more interactivity to the exhibit that you're showing off. Next slide, please. This was one of the walls that I had in the exhibit. To just add a little bit more immersive, you could play around and be Mario. I made the character while you were in the experience about the same height that Mario would be to all these blocks and items. So you could jump around on the blocks, hit your head on the question marks, and jump on basically any object in there as though you were Mario. Next slide. This is just an overview to show that you can add different timelines of each individual game that, say, for instance, like with Mario, like the backgrounds were taken from the Super Nintendo Mario Brothers way back in the day. The models, like the pipes and the blocks and the fire flower, were modeled after the N64 version, and then you got the star and the sky are to make more reminiscence of Mario Odyssey, which was for the Switch and has more of a space theme to it. And it allowed me to bring all these different concepts together pretty uniformly to make one exhibit so you understand Mario through the years. For example, you can do that with any model you want to. I think that's everything I have to say about it. I'm really passionate about the museum idea, just because a lot of people can't go to a museum, you can't travel the world to go to the Louvre. You can bring those kind of things right to your house and interact with them. You can go to a dinosaur museum, instead of just looking at the dinosaurs, maybe they can chase you around and you can know what it feels like to be a creature in that time, that sort of thing. Just allowing people who can't do something to do those things is what I want to do with my work and what I'm most passionate about. So doing this museum example was something I really enjoyed doing, and that's why I wanted to bring it to this presentation. Thank you.
That is so cool. Thank you so much, I think, for embracing trying new things and using this technology for something other than what we generally use it for, right? Entertainment or training we're all sort of used to, and we can innovate in that space. But I think we all need to remember that this is still a new technology. It's still a new industry, and there's plenty of room to do new and exciting things. So do I have Christian here? I'm just going to do a quick check. I don't believe I do. Okay, so we are going to go into sort of meet and greet time. So you can walk around and talk to the students about their exciting projects and see what they're up to. I do encourage you to ask any of those burning questions that you had during the presentation. We'll be around for a little while. Thank you, and I am so glad that you all could make it. And special thanks to Amy Liu. She's been such an inspiration to our students, and you know, she's been great through this whole experience of having to move the event around and jump into AltSpace. So thank you.
It's been really cool.
And Mike here, I just wanted to jump in quickly before we go to the poster presentations and give a huge thanks to Allison and Tyler for emceeing and putting this on for the students, because this is really all about the students, and I'm grateful for everyone that's come here. And let's give one more round of applause to the students for their great presentations and their great work that they've done.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you, Allison. And you know, these events don't happen with just one or two people. It takes a huge team to make this work, and our students have really had to learn how to be adaptive and resilient. And I think I'm really getting tired of the word pivot, but I'm going to use it one last time, is that we have pivoted on this project 3 times now, and the students have been game for it every time. They've been all over it, and you know, they've accepted the challenge and been willing to try something different. This iteration of Merging Realities was not the first, the second, or the third design. This is our 4th design on the event, and they've embraced it. And what you see going on now, actually, you know, it might be the best way to do it at the end of the day. And so, you know, we just keep on trucking and we keep trying new things. And we've had a lot of support along the way from our friends at AltSpace, from Amy Liu and Bowie, and the folks at AMP Creative who have jumped on this opportunity with us. And you know, I'm just really grateful for everybody who's contributed to this work. And I want to give a shout out to Chris too, who's in our audience in the red shirt, who's one of the faculty here and been a member of the Merging Realities since its beginning. And he's been really supportive. And our media team here at the college, and our executive team, Candace and Terry, and all the folks in the School of Technology, Environment, and Design who have supported this event and who have been behind us as we have, you know, switched it up and tried new things. So thank you to them. Sort of giving a wave to the camera, the virtual cameraman for the live stream. Thank you to everyone who has joined us on YouTube. And we hope that you enjoyed the event, for those that couldn't join us in AltSpace. And thank you to you. So I'm not going to take up any more time. What might happen though is we're going to bring the people in who are in the other room are going to come into this room as well. So if something resets, don't panic. Just carry on, and you'll be back in the room shortly. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the time here. Please take time to ask questions of the students, faculty, other presenters. Amy Liu's still around here with us. So yeah, enjoy the rest of the time here.
And can I just give one little tip here? As we're having the conversations shortly, there's going to be a lot of people talking.